Now let's look at the delete functions within the PHP code that makes up the CRUD application. Here's the delete album SQL function, and we have two queries in here. One is delete from track, where album ID equals question mark, and the second is delete from album, where ID equals question mark. We remember when we looked at the application that when we delete an album, we have to delete all the tracks along with it. And that's because the interface for the CRUD application does not have a way of looking at tracks that are not attached to an album. So if you were to delete the album and not delete the tracks, you would have orphaned data that there's no way to get at it, to look at it or delete it, and it would just be sitting there taking up space and never getting used. So it's important whenever you delete an album that you delete all of the associated tracks that are connected to the album to that particular row in the album table. So here we delete the tracks first. That way, if somehow the operation is interrupted, we don't have any orphaned data. If we were to delete the album first and somehow the operation were to be interrupted before the tracks got deleted, we would also end up with orphaned data. So we delete the tracks first with this very simple SQL, delete from track, where album ID equals question mark. And then we delete the album from the album table, delete from album, where ID equals question mark. So first we prepare and execute the first query. This is query 1, and here's the variable query 1, and there's where it corresponds there. Query 1 is the one that deletes the tracks, and we pass it the ID, which is the album ID. And this where clause for the delete will delete just those rows in the track table where the album ID is the album that we're deleting the tracks for. And then we run the second query over here, query 2, delete from album, where ID equals question mark. And in the execute call, we pass it the album ID again. And that way this question mark here will be replaced with the album ID, and the row will be deleted from the album table. So that's how we delete an album. Tracks are simpler. In this case, we're deleting a single track at a time. This is the part of the application where if you're looking at a particular album and you've got tracks, you have these delete buttons. If you press one of these delete buttons, it's going to isolate a particular track in the track table. And here's where that happens. Delete track SQL, delete from track, where ID equals question mark. Now that's the track ID. So we have the prepare statement with the SQL getting passed to it, and the execute statement that replaces the question mark with the track ID. So that's how we delete a track and how we delete an album and its associated tracks with the SQL embedded in the PHP code for the CRUD application.